And for now, we're live.
Good evening, everybody. It is Thursday, May the 9th, 2019, and this is your Mr. Video Game Super Show live show on the internet, brought to you by Dead Sun Entertainment. Applause and
Woo!
hand claps. Yay! Woo! You boys ready for a good time tonight? And lady?
Good time, questionable, but yes. Yes, I am.
There's good times in here. Not everything was a shit show, thank God. But of course, she doesn't need a remake. She is already next gen. It's Joan, aka Lady Goggles.
I have been updated with the latest in jiggle physics, so I think I'm ready for this next generation of consoles.
Excellent. But we also have the man, the legend, and his dick pic hasn't trended yet on Twitter, even if it rightfully deserves so. It's Ron, aka Wonder Boy.
How you know it hasn't?
Well, I hope, as long as it's okay with your partner, then that's fine.
Well, no, honestly, no, that is not my cup of tea.
Okay.
That is a very private matter.
I will not judge if you do the dick pic. It's a common enough thing as long as it's consensual.
Let's put it this way. I have exhibitionist tendencies. That is not my bag.
That is fair.
That's my thing.
Especially for things we'll talk about this week. Let's,
Hey Hal, hey Beth.
Howdy hell.
I'm gonna try to keep the keyboard typing to a minimum because feedback from our audio podcast, which by the way, we have an audio podcast now, it's on anchor.fm, has been telling me that my keyboard clacking's a little too loud, so I'm gonna try to respond to chat vocally if and when I can.
That's okay. I will make up for it with my keyboard clacking, furiously trying to find details that we overlooked.
Thank God I have a soft keyboard on my laptop, so, thumbs up on that.
Woo!
Anyway. So, how's it going, Brian? You got anything going on with you this week, or?
Well, I haven't really been playing a ton of new stuff. I just downloaded the PS Plus games for the month, which are Overcooked and What Remains of Edith Finch. I've already played through What Remains of Edith Finch on PC, so that game's outstanding. Definitely go check that out. But I'm really glad that Overcooked was on that list this month because my partner and I, we don't really get a lot of chances to play multiplayer stuff together. One, because the other PS4 controller that we bought crapped out the minute that we bought it, so fuck off with that thing. And number two, there's just not a ton of we both tend to gravitate towards single player experiences. So I think Overcooked would be it's probably one of the better couch co-op games that has come out in the past 5 years. And I'm always down for some frantic kitchen running, grabbing on some lettuce and screaming at some motherfuckers to make dinner for the devil. So, I'm glad that popped up there. I haven't had a chance to get into it yet, but hopefully soon enough that will happen. Other than that, I've just been watching a lot of wrestling and drinking my wine.
Oh yeah, there totally isn't a story about some of the things you've been watching.
Oh yeah.
No, there is not at all.
I haven't caught up on that yet, but I saw what you tweeted right before we went on, and I was like, oh no, what the fuck is this now? But that's for later.
I will
Absolutely.
plug it later on.
So Joan and I and my little sister and her husband all had a nice chance to head out to Rochester down the road from us to go to the Strong Museum where the World Video Game Hall of Fame is located.
Oh, it was so good. It was so fun. I took pictures, which I'm having a hard time importing from my iPhone, but as soon as I do, I'll throw them in Discord and such. They had the Video Game Hall of Fame, but they also have a video game history portion, as well as board games and things like that too. So everything from the 1880s-ish and so, all the way up to what's currently out. And for the video game portions, I mean, they cover everything from Pong, Tennis for Two, all that, all the way up to like what they had Rock Band in there, and like the latest Zelda, and they had a limited special women's in games exhibit. I'm gonna go ahead and navigate to that page real quick. And it was wonderful. There was a whole bunch of highlights of women who were involved in games. So game designers, characters, writers, artists, audio engineers, and composers, board games that were made by women. It was the coolest thing, and it was right up my alley because I think I've mentioned before that my bachelor's thesis was about representation of women and harassment of women in gaming. So I was in heaven. Like, it was the best thing. I won't ramble on because I know you want to talk about it too, Travis. But very, very enjoyable experience. And I'm glad I got to be there for the Women in Games exhibit. It was so fucking cool.
Oh, absolutely. We had to pry Joan away from that exhibit. Not that I blame her. Because there were other cool exhibits.
Give me all the things.
They also inducted 4 new games to their Hall of Fame this year. The first is Colossal Cave Adventure, the first of the interactive, you put in words and go places style games, stuff like Zork and whatnot. It's a predecessor to games of such in things.
It was, 76?
Yeah.
Was when that came out. Holy crap. Now here... Here's
only 53 years ago.
Right. Here's something that's a little contentious. They said that there was a field of 12 finalists that included Candy Crush Saga, Centipede, DDR, Half-Life Myst, NBA 2K, Sid Meier's Civilization, and Smash Bros. Melee. And out of those finalists, one of the ones they pick as an inductee is Microsoft Solitaire.
Yo, shout out to Solitaire.
I'm not saying it doesn't deserve recognition, but you're going to pick that above Half-Life, Myst, even DDR or Civilization? Like, I don't...
I have to actually give it that I think Solitaire is a really good idea to bring in. Solitaire was one of the beginning existence of the casual gaming market, which is huge these days. So it was an inductee to gaming for a lot of people. I might have gone with Minesweeper instead of Solitaire, but...
That's a fair point. That's fair. I mean, it just, I don't know. I guess it just bugs me because there's a couple of finalists on that list that I would have been like, I'd personally put that above Solitaire, but respect is given, to the 1990 old, Microsoft game.
Yeah, and let's be real. Like, Half-Life, Civilization, Melee, those are all going to get in. There's no doubt those are going to get in. Yeah. So like I'm really glad to see something that did have as much impact as Solitaire did, but doesn't necessarily have the fanfare of those other titles get their day in the sun here.
All right, I'll abdicate. That's fair.
No.
They also brought in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah!
For Mario Kart.
Mortal Kombat is especially fun, too, considering that it sparked all sorts of debates, including... it was one of the games that led to the creation of the ESRB as we know today. So, if anything else, it was definitely going to get in for that. But also because it was just a really great fighting game in its own right. It was limited characters, fun stages, like one of the first real games with like a lot of gore and all sorts of doofy stuff like that. But the characters itself, I mean, what defines fighting video games? I mean, Sonya Blade, Johnny Cage, Liu Kang, I mean, these are iconic characters. So kudos to Noob Saibot. Well done.
Still the only Mortal Kombat game to have all bangers in their cast.
Oh, hell yeah. And then Mario Kart.
Close.
Yeah, and then Mario Kart, I mean, that needs no explanation or introduction. Like, it was released in 1992, sold millions of copies. It was a game that I can't go back to now because of how slow it seems in comparison to like later Mario Karts. But it invited everybody to play. You could play as Princess Peach. You could play as Bowser. It was just a fun, like, everybody can play this game together and goof off and hit each other with shells. Like, it was really engaging. So with my questionable Solitaire thing in there, I think this is a very strong showing.
So is this like inducting the entire franchise or just Super Mario?
I think just because it's specifically in the description, it's specifically talking about the game that was released in '92.
Okay.
So I think it's yeah.
Yeah, they only ever introduce specific games in a franchise.
Okay.
I can't point out to directly because I don't remember off the top of my head, but I remember there are some instances where, actually Street Fighter 2 was inducted.
Right.
One of the specific versions of Street Fighter 2, if I remember.
One of the thousands of versions of Street Fighter.
Well, hold up. They actually broke down like a specific version of Street Fighter 2 to induct into this Hall of Fame.
I'm fairly certain.
I believe they did. I know it's specifically Street Fighter 2.
I'm gonna go clicky clacky for a second. Anyway.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No worries. The only reason why I was bringing that up was because, like, honestly, like, while Super Mario Kart is great and it is the foundation that all the other games are made off of, no one is going to sit here and argue against Double Dash being the best game in that series and the one that deserves the rightful spot.
Double Dash was fun. I really liked Mario Kart 8. Like, I know it's cheesy and whatever, but I enjoyed it. But if you ever get the chance to go to Rochester, which is in New York State, it's in Western New York, definitely, obviously if you're listening to us, I'm assuming you're a fan of video games. So go to the Strong Museum of Play. If nothing else, you're going to see a really great permanent exhibit which shows the history of video games. And then downstairs, there's a pinball lobby where you can play old pinball games. Upstairs with the history exhibit, there's old arcade games. It's a blast. Like, go visit them. We're not getting paid to endorse them or anything. Just go visit them. They're really, really fantastic place. Just be prepared to deal with a lot of kids.
Yeah. Oh yeah, especially on the weekend. You're getting.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Really quick, I don't know if we're going to talk about what we've been playing. I'm really talkative today. Like, I'm really in a good mood. I've been going back to Fallout New Vegas. We were on my stream. We were playing Dragon Age Origins, and we were having a good time with it. The game crashed 6 times, and then I lost an hour of progress. So at that point, I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. And I'm like, we're just gonna play something that I know I can just kind of sit and play and have a conversation with chat. So I went back to Fallout New Vegas. I modded the shit out of it. There's like 13 mods on there so far. Gotta add some more. And it's just been a blast. Like, we just made it out of Nipton. We made our way up to Novak, if you've played, which I'm sure most people here have at least heard of the storyline. And it's a great game to go back to. Like, this is one of my favorite games probably ever because of the charm and the world building and everything around it. It really felt like you were going back to the old Interplay roots. I don't even talk about this in detail. You guys know Fallout New Vegas. But, it still holds up. I mean, you gotta mod the shit out of it to make sure that it's stable for newer OSs and stuff like that. But when it works, and it's still a very fun experience. And that's really been the extent of it. I'm looking forward to a couple of things. On the 16th, House Flipper DLC is going to drop called Garden Flipper, where you can do your own landscaping. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I think that's the big one. Oh, A Plague Tale: Innocence is coming out on the 14th, I think, and that's made by I think it's an independent studio. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but you play as a young girl living with her sickly brother in France during the plague, and you have to outrun both the swarm of rats that are carrying the plague as well as the Spanish Inquisition. It's looking really fucking good, and I've been wanting to get it for some time, and one of my friends gifted a code to it for me, so definitely looking forward to playing both of those when they come out. So that's been my thing.
I do believe you also saw a little independent movie of some sort.
Oh yeah, it's not a big deal. I didn't think it. I mean, I guess we can talk about it. Today, my husband and I went to go see Detective Pikachu. Have you heard of it?
No, Detective. What did you?
Pikachu. It's like a little yellow chubby thing that has electricity in its tail. It's a little weird. But Ryle Reynolds is in it. So it's got big name stars in there. Ken Watanabe is in it. Yeah, the Van Wilder guy, the guy who was in Waiting.
Oh, the Green Lantern!
Yeah.
That guy!
Yeah, that guy. So, Detective Pikachu comes out tomorrow, and they had a couple of advanced showings, and one of them was at a theater that's relatively close to where we live. So me and my husband went, and I have to say, without spoiling, it was a fucking charming film. Like, it's honestly, I mean, putting aside something like Mortal Kombat, which you really can't compare the two, like, it's the best video game movie, I think, that's ever been made. Um, the world building, I mentioned this in my tweet, but the world building is extremely solid. The designs for the Pokemon, I mean, some of them are a little odd, but they fit in really well. The plot is, it's a kid's film, so it's a little cliche, but there was actually like a twist in there that I was like, okay, this is cool. I didn't see this coming. Like the sound design was very good. They got all the voices right. The soundtrack and the diegetic music and the non-diegetic music was really good. The characters were really fun and refreshing. I really liked the protagonist, Tim. You have to go, and his father died in an accident. He goes to Rhyme City, which is a place where human and Pokemon coincide together. So there's no Pokemon battles, there's no Pokemon stadiums. Everybody just works together. It's like an outlier in the Pokemon universe. And then Tim starts this investigation to see maybe his dad's dead, maybe he's alive. We don't know, So it's actually a mystery element in there. It unfolds very well. The pacing's really good. I don't want to spoil it. You can watch the trailer, and if you're older, you can figure out the plot kind of yourself. But it's still very much worthwhile going to see it. I do highly recommend it. It was a lot of fun. It was just a lot of fun. I haven't had this much fun with a video game movie, honestly, since Mortal Kombat. It was just very, very charming.
I've heard nothing but positivity out of the people who have already seen it. It's not the greatest movie to ever come out, but
yeah. I'm not going to give it, I'm not going to say it deserves an Oscar or anything, but I will say that visually it looks very, very nice. They did their best to put Pokemon and humans together in such a way that it makes sense to the world. Like, oh, you could totally see this Pokemon doing this particular job. Or this Pokemon interacting in this way with these people, and it's very believable. And again, I'm not going to say it's Oscar worthy because it's not. It's just it's a simple kids film, but being a simple kids film, it works out really, really well, and I'm glad I saw it in theaters because, like I said, there was just a lot of charm surrounding the whole film, and I there was never a point in the film where I felt like, this is dragging on, or this is kind of boring or predictable. Like it was just fun from start to finish. Just a fun film.
all right, shall we get to the newsy news for today?
Yeah. Let's start with
there's plenty to get to.
You want to start with Riot, I guess?
Yeah, we're starting off with a follow-up from last week. It was announced last week that a walkout would take place on Monday of this week, and it wasn't entirely certain how many members of Riot Studios would walk out. To give you a bit of backstory, there have been allegations of sexual discrimination and just bullshittery at Riot, and several employees, former employees, filed lawsuits, and they were put into forced arbitration because of their contract with Riot. Which Riot is standing by to continue with the forced arbitration, even if saying in later lawsuits we will continue to use standard, jury practices instead. It's going to hold these people still to that forced arbitration.
Yeah, basically, a lot of the issues regarding gender bias in promotions and sexual harassment. I believe there's actually allegations of the COO ball tapping people in the office because that's what you want your COO to be doing. But so in response to all of this, that reported walkout or the plans of a walkout that we talked about last week happened this week. I believe that was on Monday when that
Correct.
went down, and it turned out to have over 100 Riot employees, or rioters as they refer to themselves, walk out, stage a protest in the parking lot, while various employees had megaphones and spoke to the crowd in the parking lot, um, demanding that current litigation be removed, or have the forced arbitration clause be removed from current litigation, as well as for current employees as well. Um, and that they were still calling for systemic change whenever the company refused to release the COO, and I believe there's another executive that was accused of some of these sexual harassment practices. Both of them were retained by Riot. They are still in their positions at Riot, and a lot of the employees were calling for them to actually either face legit repercussions or be removed entirely. Um, I'm trying to think. There was one other like major thing that came out of this. I don't know. If what do you, I mean, honestly, like it seemed like it came off pretty well. It seemed like it came off with a very good response from both the employees and the greater community, offering support to the rioters. I do know that Riot responded to the walkout by saying that they were going to allow their employees to do this, and that there would be no repercussions for anyone who chose or chose not to participate in it. But even that being said, a lot of the rioters that did walk out still fear that there might be some form of internal repercussions. And I believe, if I can find the right quote, one of the leaders of the walkout basically stated that if there is not a response to some other demands, I don't want to misspeak, so I'm going to hold off on that for a second and find the quote. What did y'all think of whenever this went down?
My thought is that basically they allowed the walkout to take place between the hours of 2 and 4 p.m. Isn't that nice?
How generous
A
of
whole
them.
2-hour walkout. Yeah, and nothing really changed as far as I can tell. Now, maybe we haven't given enough time. 3 days isn't a whole lot of time, but also, I just don't see a whole lot actually having come out of it. As well, there were some people that Kotaku spoke to directly that disagree with the people who have done the active protest. Um, Let me see. Yeah, not all Riot workers agreed with the sentiments behind the walkout. According to current employee, one person was allowed to pose a rare anonymous question to executive at last week's company meeting. The sources said the anonymous question regarded employees who felt like they could not express opinions that dissent from those of frustrated employees walking out. Maybe 10% of us will walk out, one source said while discussing a group of dissenting coworkers. Normally, the burden of defense is on the scabs.
Excuse me.
Blessings.
I mean, I don't agree with the perspective, but
Yeah,
I understand why they would feel that way. Um, Maybe they aren't necessarily as affected by some of this stuff. You know, and since they are anonymous, we don't really know anything about who they are or what position they're in, or like where they could be within the company's hierarchy or infrastructure. So I'm knowing all of that, I can't automatically dismiss what this person says. It's their feelings, and those feelings are valid. They're not for the betterment of the employee treatment at the company. I will say that much. But you know, that's their feelings. They can feel that way if they want. Um, the big thing, the last thing to come out of this at the actual walkout though was the announcement from, let me find her first name. I apologize. Jocelyn Monahan, who's a social listening strategist at Riot, who was one of the leaders of the walkout, or one of the more prominent voices during the walkout. She was quoted as saying that if Riot management doesn't make any sort of commitment on forced arbitration by May 16th, which is the date of their next Riot Unplugged meeting, their company-wide meeting, that she and others involved with the walkout will take further action. Another organizer told Kotaku, "We do have plans, and we do have days that we're planning, and we do have commitments that we have responses for." So clearly, there is something else in the works if their voices are not being heard by the company based off of what happened this week.
You think this will escalate to a class action lawsuit?
I mean, that's the thing, though, is that even if they try and file something class action, because of the contractual status, I don't know if they'll actually be able to, because they'll still be forced into arbitration at the moment. I mean, I'm not as familiar with the law on that aspect of filing individual lawsuits versus a class action lawsuit and how that might be a workaround for contracts and everything. But obviously they are committed to changing this, and they are not stopping with just one walkout that Riot supposedly might not be taking as seriously as they should.
Anything else you want to add to the rioters today?
I will note that the office in Los Angeles was not the only office that held a walkout for Riot this week. The Riot offices in Dublin as well staged their own walkout. Only about 18 people participated in that one, but it's still it's unity
Still
across
something.
it's unity across different offices within this ginormous company. And even if and that's the other thing, is it's over 100 people. It's probably close to 150 people total between the two offices, I would say, but that's still a sliver of the employee base that Riot has. So it's not a giant population, but hopefully it is enough. It is hopefully the loudest part of that population, because honestly, Riot has not handled themselves well in the wake of all the sexual harassment allegations, all of the gender discrimination allegations, and not to mention their responses to those allegations. The forced arbitration thing is just the latest in a long line of bullshit that company needs to address, and address quickly. They've been sitting by waiting for this stuff it's just going to keep boiling over.
And it's worth noting that one of the employees in the Kotaku article mentions, so far, I haven't seen a single outcome of our diversity and inclusion efforts at Riot. I haven't seen a single metric or number to indicate things have improved, and I haven't seen a single project get finished. So, it's clear that Riot, if I had to hazard a guess, I could be wrong, is not taking this seriously. Or as seriously as they should be.
Whenever your COO is a known ball tapper, I don't think they take a ton of stuff too seriously.
Well, there's that.
Do we want to talk about another high priority or high person in power in video games who continues to give us wonderful news?
Sure! What the hell? Why not?
That depends on who we're talking about.
Let's talk about Randy Pitchford.
You guys like
I'm
Claptrap?
all on the pitch train.
You guys like Claptrap? You guys play Borderlands?
He was a little overplayed.
I can't play Borderlands because the graphics make me sick. I get motion sickness super bad after 10 minutes and I can't play. But go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say I played 2 hours of Borderlands 1 and got bored to shit. So if that
Maybe-
tells you anything about
maybe
my opinion.
Maybe that's for the best. But, David Eddings, who previously worked at Gearbox, and he played Claptrap in the original games. There is a whole thing going on that's been jumping across Twitter, and apparently there's an update to an original story. There was originally a pay dispute, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, you two. When he worked at Gearbox, he basically volunteered his voice. Because it was like, hey, I'm working here already, I'm going to volunteer my voice, I'll be Claptrap. So for the third game that's coming out, he requested pay. I don't think he works at Gearbox anymore, and he's like, yeah, I'll do the character, but I need to get paid. And they said no. So there's a pay dispute going on right now, and I'm sure Brian has more information about this. But now, David is saying that Pitchford, quote, physically assaulted me in the lobby of the Marriott Marquis at the Game Developers Conference 2017.
Yeah, so some context to the pay situation in his previous voice work for the series. Gearbox regularly recruits employees to lend their voices to minor characters or some characters within their games. Mm-hmm. David Eddings just happened to be chosen, offered his voice for Claptrap while he was an employee there, and Claptrap became what Claptrap became. So obviously every time that a new installment in that series came out, he was going to come back and do that. He no longer works for the company, like you said. Mm-hmm. So now he did request payment from Randy Pitchford, and of course they don't really pay you extra when you work for the company to do the voices.
Right.
So Randy Pitchford is not going to shell out the money. And of course, this whole dust up on Twitter led to the accusation that Eddings was assaulted by Pitchford in the lobby of that San Francisco hotel at GDC that year. And I don't know. I tend to err on the side of the person against Randy Pitchford at this moment.
Right. Because it's not like this son of a bitch has had a clean track record. I'm sorry, but
no.
With how volatile the fan of USB sticks has been recently, the purveyor of medieval times has been, it's amazing they still let this motherfucker on Twitter to go say bullshit.
May I reiterate, this is the same motherfucker who, after Game Informer called him out on his loot box bullshit for Borderlands 3, took to Twitter and actually said, "Why would you fuck me on this?" to the Game Informer writer publicly.
How dare you do your due diligence and do your job? How dare you?
Exactly. It is such hot. The dude has no media training at all.
I'm sorry, you took me out of context. I said specifically beforehand that there would be different character models you can buy, but then I said there'd be no microtransactions.
Motherfucker!
One of
That's
these
not
things.
microtransactions.
It's not like the other. Like it's. This is kind
Does
of
the
a
transaction cost less than the actual game does? Does it cost like a small fraction of what the game costs? It does. Oh, cool. The micro transaction.
This is Pitchford doing what we like to call a notch. Talking bullshit on social media and then expecting no repercussions for said bullshit. Hey, newsflash. People read prolific people's social media, whether they like them or not. And if you are going to write vitriolic nonsense, especially citing something that says, "I can't believe you fucked me like this," word gets around, you see, because this is how social media works. Those of us who are little people can get away with saying whatever the fuck we want on social media because we're not influencers. You are somebody who works in a major corporation for a major industry. You know better. Or you should. And personally, frankly, I'm glad this is blowing up because you've got your head up your ass.
It should also be noted that Eddings, according to his statements, did offer to voice Claptrap for free in Borderlands 3 if Pitchford agreed to pay him past royalties on the games that he had already done the voice for.
Well,
which of course he's going to balk on that because that would probably be way more money than he was going to be paid to do the voice for this game alone. And then also Eddings in his statements made reference to, didn't explicitly confirm, but did make reference to the same skimming of $12 million that Pitchford pulled off the top of his payment from publishers and gave himself a quote executive bonus with that the lawsuit from Wade Callender, the Gearbox lawyer, who's also alleging that Randy Pitchford holds his parties, quote unquote, at his house.
Can I get my executive bonus? Where's my executive bonus?
I wish I had an executive. My executive bonus is this wine in my glass.
So,
anyway,
needless to say, this has been one of the major fuckeries that's been going on in the world of video games as of late. But boy, is it up there with the fuckeries, and it gets worse. Not this story in particular, but boy, does the news get worse from here.
All right, our next two stories. We're going to do these relatively quickly, I think, because there's not a lot of details here. But we're going to start off with, through IGN's John Ryan.
This is so stupid.
Bethesda has an update coming promoting the Elder Scrolls Online that seems to have ripped off Wizards of the Coast material.
This is... Okay, so the Elder Scrolls Online has an update going on, and Netherlands Studios published a yet unnamed Elder Scrolls Online tabletop RPG adventure, and it uses the rules for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. But apparently, instead of coming up with its own concept, like literally every other company has to do, it allegedly stole an entire adventure from one of Wizards of the Coast 2016, 2016's adventures, from their Adventures League. And apparently it was an Adventures League scenario, The Black Road. So, like, you know how many people have millions of stories and millions of plot hooks and ideas, and literally, like, you can go online and there's millions of people like, hey, here's my story content ideas that will work in this format. Feel free to use it. Feel free to hire me. Feel free to do this. Nah, we're just gonna go ahead and copy off of fucking Adventures League content. Bethesda, with all of the shit.
Jerk off nightly to the idea of somebody buying their D&D campaign idea.
Right.
Holy shit.
Oh my god, especially you could be like, Bethesda used my idea. They bought my idea and this is the kind of quality that I do. Bethesda use it. No! Let's just steal somebody else's original fucking content. And it should be noticed, according to the article too, is that there's certain elements of D&D that are available to designers because it has like an open gaming license, so that people could create and publish their own D&D content. So they could have had any one of their writers come up with a fucking scenario. You can use the stats, you can use the skills. Like, it's okay to use the core rules, certain elements of them, like I said, to make your own content. It is a-okay. So on top of everything the fuck else that Bethesda has been doing wrong since last summer, it's plagiarizing somebody else's hard work. What the fuck?
Y'all want a sample?
Sure.
Because I have the two side by side things.
Yeah, please. Actually, do you have a picture so I can throw it up on the feed?
Here, I'll post a link in here with the two selections, so you can pull that up.
Again, like,
so we can all read along together on this. I'm just gonna read the first paragraph of this. It's only 3 sentences, but dear God. All right, just keep scrolling down a little bit, and you should be there. It's like 2 block quotes.
Okay, I see it.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. So this is from The Black Road. This is the D&D campaign. There's nothing like the desert to make people feel small and insignificant. In every direction, huge dunes roll across the landscape, and an even bigger sky looms above. The oasis of Bernthal is a motley collection of sun-bleached tents in the vast Anurok desert.
Okay, and now here's the one from that was written by Bethesda. Nothing beats the desert to make people feel small and unimportant. In every direction, enormous dunes rule across the landscape, and then even larger empty air skies above it. Sick. The oasis on the border between Cyrodiil and Elvisir is a colorful collection to the sun-drenched tents in the vast desert of Elisnia. So, they know how to use a thesaurus. That's pretty good.
Did they hire the guy that did IGN's Dead Cells review?
Oh, the Nintendo editor?
See, that would make sense. That would make sense. But who knows? But the link to the adventure has since been removed. And Paige Leitman, who is listed as an author and designer on the D&D adventure, posted a very lengthy Facebook thread about how bullshit this was, but, more politely. It was called How They Plagiarize Our Adventure, an Annotated PowerPoint Presentation. So, this Bethesda, what the and I mean this in no seriousness, what the fuck are you doing? Really? You're falling apart as a company. Like, you're at the point where, like, we're going to talk about E3 soon and the schedules for E3 and everybody coming up. Who is going to take you seriously after continued fuck up after fuck up after fuck up? And that's just 76. I'm not talking about anything else that you've done. This is just pathetic. You pay writers to write your content. It is not that hard to come up with D&D content. I say this as somebody who occasionally plays D&D. Like, it's not that big of a deal. I came up with my own fucking D&D content. Like, come on. Bethesda, pull your head out of Todd's ass and start working on your own fucking material.
Alright, and our last in the company subsection, I guess, Actually, a fairly good one. NetherRealm is responding to crunch concerns with meetings and surveys from Rebecca Valentine over at GameIndustry.biz. From what we can tell, they've actually addressed some of the employees' concerns. Workers haven't been working past 6 p.m. They've been given the weekend off, and they're looking into ways that they can make sure that crunch time gets addressed and that workers don't work until they nearly die.
Right, which is nice.
I mean, it's a good thing that they are limiting work hours in the response to this article, but let's also remember, like, look at the timetable here. They just released MK11. Usually, right after you release a game is when you have
your
a bit of
vacation
downtime.
and your time. Yeah, yeah.
So, like, it makes sense that they would be cutting back on hours. There wouldn't be crunch going on right now. Talk to me whenever that DLC's coming up. Then we'll see how it's looking. But I will say this: they did do better than other companies that have been reported on recently.
Well, they're doing better than Riot right now.
They're doing better than Riot. They're doing better than Epic. They're doing better than a bunch of companies with this shit. You know, they held a company-wide meeting. They have their HR survey going out that's going to be delivered to Warner Brothers. I don't know what they're going to do with that necessarily, because I don't know if Warner Brothers actually cares as a company. But you know, it's a step forward. It's better than, you know, what did the Epic spokesman say last week? You know, like, it's better than them putting out saying, like, we just want to put out a good product and blah blah blah, and just like fucking company speak. It's way better than that.
Yeah. We talked at length about corporate jargon and how, like, it's intentionally meant to just kind of give you the impression that they're doing something while not actually doing anything. So the fact that they're actually, at least seemingly, taking some steps to fix these concerns is good. But like you were saying, Brian, I was just going to talk about that too. Like, it's no coincidence that of course they're giving people the weekend off and less time at working because a game is just released. That's usually when you have to take your vacation time or you have to take your PTO, whatever, because the next development's going to start soon and this is the only opportunity you can do so. If they're in the middle of development, like let's say for a big DLC pack or whatever next title they're working on, and they keep doing this, then I'll applaud them and be like, you know what? Good on you. You did it. Until then, I'm not holding my breath. I have to see what happens.
I'm skeptical, but it's at least a start. Especially, you know, there's still patches that need to be done. There's still marketing work that needs to be done. So it's a fucking start at least.
It's something, but I mean, we still have the rest of the year to look at. And I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to hold my breath and assume that this is going to be smooth sailing forever from NetherRealm. So, you know, we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on it for sure.
No, obviously you do want to keep an eye on them, but it is, like I said, I will commend them for at least taking a positive step out of the situation. Also, now maybe they can take some time to patch Ronda Rousey out of that game.
Oh my God!
It's my own personal vendetta. I will not stop talking about her until she is fucking off my Sonya Blade.
So, guys, were you aware it's been 10 years since Plants vs. Zombies came out?
Has it been 10 years? Fuck me.
I was not.
Yep, 10 years since Plants vs. Zombies came out. Creator of Insane Aquarium and then Plants vs. Zombies, George Fan took to Twitter for the 10th anniversary and put up some of his original design sketches. There's some weird shit in here that's great. Some of the original ideas were to use the aliens from the original Insane Aquarium game. Instead, it eventually became the zombies. It was going to be a tower defense game, rather than, for a while, the tiered having lanes that the zombies can travel down thing that they have. There was even plans for Magic the Gathering inspired card uses that you would use to instead play things along the lines as it went down the road. And it's really interesting. I'd recommend, there's a whole thread that the Twitter, that the Kotaku article that we're looking at right now by Luke Plaquette doesn't even entirely cover. And there is just some great information in there that we're not going to go deep into, but it's fascinating to see what game it could have been instead of the monster hit that became Plants vs. Zombies.
Oh, look at that. That's so cute. Yeah, I still can't believe it's been 10 years. That blows my friggin' mind. Like, wow, 10 years? Is this how old I am?
Mm-hmm.
It's cute. I really don't have much else to say. Like, it's a cute little note in the video game histories. Congratulations, Plants vs. Zombies. You're 10 years old. You made it.
Still going strong too, somewhat.
Oh yeah, considering that they've got Garden Warfare 2, I think is being worked on right now.
I think that one already came out,
the
but
fuck?
I think Garden Warfare 2 already came out. But yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, well, that's interesting that you just pointed out.
Wait a
on the
minute.
stream.
Wait a goddamn minute.
Who's putting anime in my Fallout 4?
What the fuck is this?
I had seen that earlier, and I was like, I don't want to bring that up because
No!
I knew the reaction you were going to have to that.
What the fuck is this?
Are we
Of
sure we're
course
not just
modders are going to put fucking anime inside of your video games.
Oh god, no, Uncanny Valley. It looks terrible. It looks
What?
terrible in animation.
Why?
Oh my God. This is gross.
Why?
It's bad. Your
Okay.
hair is clipping.
You know
So
what?
bad.
You know what? I'm gonna have to do another fucking playthrough of Fallout just so that I can look at this. Look at
That's
this.
not good hair.
Oh my god. Like some of this is modded. Like this is the Wastelander beauty pack, I think, or something like that. But holy shit. Holy shit. Look at those tits. This is ridiculous. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know I derailed chat, but like I'm done. E3.
You ready for the hype?
E3. E3. I don't want to look at Fallout anime titties.
All right. We've got the official press conference schedule for 2019 E3 now. On Sunday, June 9th, 1 p.m. Pacific, it will be Microsoft, followed at 5:30 by Bethesda.
Oof.
Highlight of the weekend, right there.
Like, I mean, I'm definitely gonna see if like hopefully Twitch has co-streaming on for like TwitchCon and for other stuff. So fingers crossed that they'll have co-streaming on for E3. It'd be a huge missed up opportunity if they didn't, in my opinion. So if they do allow co-streaming, that is something. If we can't do it here, I would love to do it on my channel just so we can have commentary and stuff going on. Oh boy, I am so excited to see what Bethesda's got to say on June 9th. Be there or be square.
On Monday, it will be Ubisoft at 1 p.m.
Okay, alright, okay.
Square Enix at 6 p.m., and I am so down for that one.
That should be interesting.
I mean, they only really have 2 games to talk about, I feel. Unless they have just a whole bunch of stuff to dump on us then, but like I only know of 2 games, so.
But yeah, and Nintendo finally will be coming up on Tuesday, June 11th at 9 a.m.
Give me that fucking Animal Crossing, I swear to God.
You'll get plenty of info, I think, there. Don't worry.
Kotaku, why you do this to me? One game we won't see, Reggie, Phil, and me.
Aww.
Why, Kotaku?
Yeah, but we get Doug Bowser coming in.
Yeah.
True, it will be the first taste of Doug Bowser. Maybe there will be some kind of like handoff between the two. Maybe Reggie will show up for like a very short
Aw,
while.
that would be nice. Don't.
Yeah.
Aw, my heart. I miss Reggie.
But yeah, Nintendo has stated that they will be focusing entirely on software this time.
Yes.
There's some plans that they've already going to talk about. You know, the Super Mario Maker 2, Fire Emblem. We've got Dragon Quest XI S.
I'm sure the new
Luigi's Mansion
Pokemon.
3,
Yeah.
New Pokemon, Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, and others.
Oh yeah,
Get
they have plenty
fucked.
of stuff. They have plenty of stuff to talk about there.
If I don't get new information about Animal Crossing from this E3 presentation, I'm going to lose my fucking mind.
I'm almost positive you'll get a release date out of this. If they honestly like, if there's not a release date, like I don't know. I have to figure out something that I'm willing to put up against it because I am almost 100% positive there's going to be a release date announced for Animal Crossing.
Don't do this to me, Nintendo.
That being said, I am surprised that they are saying that they are solely focusing on software here. Around whenever there are so many reports going around about the new versions of the Switch that they are working on. I really thought that E3 would be like a good opportunity for them to kind of get out not necessarily ahead of that talk, but acknowledge and talk about those sort of things heading into the holiday season. So that does surprise me a tiny bit.
Well, I mean, they still have a couple of opportunities if they plan on doing it for this holiday season, but at the same time, I could also see why too, because I think they're in a position now where the Switch is doing fairly well, from what I understand. So it's like, now it's a time to really focus on getting that software out and be like, Switch is doing great, let's keep that momentum up, let's keep doing what we have to do. Here's all the shit that you're looking forward to. So I definitely see what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm not too worried about it. Like, I we'll see what happens, I guess.
As well, there is a big name coming to E3 out of Square Enix. The long fucking awaited Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming out of its death knells. There was a whole PlayStation. What was the name
State
of
of
the
Play.
event?
State of Play.
State of Play. That's the
second
guy.
State of Play.
Yeah, and overall, the State of Play was kind of meh as far as I'm concerned. Like, they talked about Medieval a bit and all that, and then they put out the trailer for Final Fantasy VII, and oh, this is why you did it.
Yeah, it was definitely a one-match show, as we say in the wrestling parlance. But no, I mean, it looks outstanding. You know, it also looks completely different than what I expected. Both in terms of like the graphics and the systems at play within this thing, because this looks an awful lot like Final Fantasy 15 in its battle system.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong. I definitely see a whole lot of influence from 13 and 15
Which
here.
I can understand, because if that worked well, I can see the reasoning. Like, hey, if we really want to modernize this, let's do so in a way that is a lot less clumsier than what we've had in the past. So I can see them doing that and justifying it like through that measure. You guys know I'm not a big fan of Final Fantasy VII. I only like Aerith, and she looks great, and I love her. I wonder if there's gonna be like a little hidden way to like save her from dying, although I doubt it.
They've actually said they plan to do that now. How it actually happens? Yeah.
Wait, hold on. They're making this where you can save Aerith?
That was one of the ideas that was put out. Now, whether it actually happens or not, you'll have to play to see, but that was one of the major talking points that they had.
I would go through this entire shit game again if that meant that I could have Aerith in my party for the rest of the game. Don't tease me like this, Square.
I don't know. I feel like altering the story like that kind of robs it of its most of its highest emotional mountaintops in a lot of ways.
I disagree.
That's a longer conversation. For
yeah.
another day,
Let's put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on to our next delightful story, coming out of GameIndustry.biz and Brandon Sinclair. There's been a recent peer-reviewed paper in Addictive Behaviors that has been published in regards to loot box engagement, which has led, especially to young adults, to have more risky behavior, including gambling.
So this is something that has been contested for a very, very long time, and I'm glad that there's actually been a study. So this is it says September 2019. Academic journals and stuff are published ahead of time, or at least this is what you can expect to read. And the highlights from the abstract include that the majority of video games players are familiar with or use loot boxes. Most gamers agree with the statement that loot boxes are a form of gambling. Risky loot box use correlated moderately with gambling-related ventures, and the most telling percentage here is gambling-related variables predicted 37.1% of the variance for risky loot box use. So it's definitely something that again, the abstract is here, and I linked it in chat if you want to go ahead and take a look at that abstract. It's definitely something that shows a correlation between addictive, personality and gambling and loot boxes. And this is something that companies know and companies knew. Jim Sterling talked about this years ago, and I'm glad now the research is finally coming out saying, hey, yeah, this is super shitty and this is affecting game players, especially people with addictive personality. And I'm not laughing because it's funny, I'm laughing because we have been speaking about this ad nauseum for years, talking about the dangers of loot boxes. And it's not just, oh, well, it's just a couple of dollars, whatever, and people kind of wavering away like, oh, it's not dangerous, it's just gambling. No, gambling can be dangerous, again, especially if you have addictive personality. And now here's the proof.
Yeah, it definitely needs, more research into it before we can definitively say, yes, this is what we're seeing. There's, the paper specifically goes out of its way to say that, one research paper isn't enough to begin any form of legislation or anything along those lines, but it's certainly an interesting place to start.
Mm-hmm.
And it only so far confirms, like you said, the feelings and emotions that I believe a lot of us have had, that loot boxes are deceptive and definitely manipulative.
And Beth brings up a really good point in chat too, because it's a Skinner's box type thing where you press a button and something happens and you get rewarded not just with that, but you get rewarded with that dopamine, and then you just keep doing it. And it's worth noting that there's games even like those gacha apps and stuff online where you're not really winning anything, you're just spending money on a virtual item or a virtual app or something like that. So it's like that's a very real thing, and developers and publishers take advantage of that.
Yeah, it does not surprise me that we're that we're seeing research come out about this, and we're probably likely to see more research come out about this.
Oh yeah,
especially considering that the World Health Organization moved to actually classify gaming addiction and gaming disorder in their purvey of mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the exact journal's name at the moment, but basically they did move to classify those two things in their latest release of their Journal of Mental Illness. So, knowing that health organizations are already trending towards looking at some of the more addictive qualities of video gaming, it does not surprise me at all that we're going to see more research about loot boxes and their association to gambling, or their resemblance to gambling. And also, they are very right to caution that one paper does not make an entire point, which really surprised me. Why the next story that we're going to talk about actually took place a little bit.
Yeah, but before we get into that, just again, Travis brought up a good point that, you got to start somewhere, and this is, in all fairness, this is a relatively small sample size. It's, they surveyed, they conducted the study in two phases. The first surveyed 144 adult gamers, and then the second surveyed 113 undergrads from University of British Columbia, which is where this research is coming from. So it's worth noting that's a relatively small sample size. But even with those, 100, 200 people, 37 or 31%, was it? Is still a significant number. So if there's going to be further research, and there should be, it's pretty telling, I think. And I'd love to see more research come out of this and really see what the ramifications are. But it looks like we're already starting to see some of those ramifications, according to our next story.
Oh, yeah, and this comes from Jason Schreier, the big man over at Kotaku himself.
He's a big boy.
Man.
Yes. Reporting on Josh Hawley has recently introduced a bill. Now, keep in mind, it's just been a bill that's been introduced to ban pay-to-win microtransactions in games played by minors.
Well,
That's period instance that any game played by anyone under the age of 18 would not be allowed to have microtransactions under this bill. They specifically point out games like Candy Crush and its $150 Luscious bundle that comes with a bunch of goodies that you can purchase to further yourself in the game.
Now, It's called okay. It's called the Protecting Children from Abusive Games Act. It's coming to the Senate. It should be noted that Josh Hawley is a Republican from Minnesota, and he announced the bill. And Missouri, excuse me. Not Missouri. What did I say? Minnesota. That was stupid.
No.
I can't do friggin' abbreviations. Point is that they were saying, like Dr. Travis was saying, whose developers knowingly allow minor players to engage in microtransactions. I think the problem with this is that it's a little slippery because you can't prove, to some extent, developers knowingly allowing minor players to engage in microtransactions. Like, I think it's going to be harder to prove with some games. But I'm kind of on the fence about this. I don't know. Like, I just wish companies would stop doing this to begin with and stop exploiting people. But should it be up to the government to ban loot box? Does that make sense? Like, I don't know.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, so, like, Holly's heart is in the right place. His language, is in no way the right language needed for a bill like this in terms of addressing the video game marketplace and video game development. B, his language will be very, very hard to enforce and regulate, and I think that it points to the continued lack of understanding from Capitol Hill in regards to the video game market and what video games actually do.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't forget, we're like a little over a decade removed from whenever video games were deemed art protected under the First Amendment. You know, that case went to the Supreme Court a little over a decade ago, and so video games are still a very young medium, and so much so that the current generation of legislators do not understand what they are talking about most of the time whenever they are trying to regulate this market. So it does not surprise me at all that he got his wording wrong, and he basically wrote out a bill that would be very, very, very hard to enforce in an actual fashion. But what's more troubling to me personally is the ESA's response to this.
Oh yeah, that was where I was the most interested in their wonderful response. Do you mind if I read this?
Yeah, go for
Because
it.
it's delightful.
Go for it.
Numerous countries, including Ireland, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom, determined that loot boxes do not constitute gambling. We look forward to sharing with the Senator the tools and information the industry already provides that keeps the controls of in-game spending in parents' hands. Parents already have the ability to limit or prohibit in-game purchases with easy-to-use parental controls.
Maybe in Candy Crush.
Yeah. Like, it is not that hard to play a game on a console or PC, click a button, and then boom, there's your currency points or whatever the fuck. Like, it's a lot easier than the ESRB is saying it is, and it's hard for me to like, I'm putting myself in the middle here because the video game industry is a self-regulating industry, and as we've seen, it doesn't always work. But at the same time, I think government is getting a little too involved. I mean, do you guys see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if I'm not really articulating myself well. It's
No. You're making sense. Like, the government is trying to get involved, but they do not understand anywhere near the entry point that they need to make.
Yeah, and Beth is bringing up something in chat that I wanted to address too, because they're saying that, like, hey, you can't rely on parents to do that because it's media babysitting, and then parents will place the screen in front of their child and not monitor them. And that's true. But I also feel like if you're a parent who's sincerely worried about your kid playing games they shouldn't have access to, or playing or getting involved in loot boxes, don't buy the games. Like, there should be, parents should be held to a certain level of responsibility for what their child consumes. And that's the issue that I'm having, I guess, with the government stepping in, because parenting shouldn't be a passive activity. And that's not to say that parents don't do that, because you just get tired after a while. It's like, here, go watch TV or go on the tablet or something. I get that. But there should be a little less of passive consumption of what's going on, a little more engagement in what your kid is doing. But that said, that's still... there's got to be some sort of conjunction between the ESRB and the parents and the government, and I feel like the government's just a little too involved at this stage. Like, it's not an epidemic. It's something that should be addressed.
I have to argue here against it, right? Because how effing easy is it for a kid to... But, like, I remember as a kid the number of times that I bypassed the security on, we had a cable box as a kid. Mm-hmm. Bypassing that was pretty straightforward. My parents had their own logins to the internet that I certainly found out the password to, so that I could change my own restrictions on my own account.
I remember
that kids aren't going to steal
right
credit cards.
Right. No, exactly, and that's part of my point too. It's like, if you are a parent, you need to not be passive in the act of parenting. You need to be aware of what's going on. Like, hey, what's this fucking $300 charge? I didn't do. You know what I mean? Like, don't let your kids have access to the fucking cards and stuff to begin with, maybe. Beth is saying, yeah, I'm not arguing that passive parenting is something we just accept. I'm just saying relying on parents to be that vigilant is not a safety net. And that's true. That's true. But at the same time, I don't think it's the full responsibility of the government to also get involved, if that makes sense. Like, it's just... like Brian was saying, it's really shady wording, and it's the language isn't there to show that the senator has a full grasp on what is going on in the industry.
No, he doesn't. But I will say this: like, the fact that he is willing to introduce legislation is a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Because here's where I like kind of cross the river on the whole passive parenting argument, and the fact that parents should be placing their own kids in this sort of situation. Whenever you implement predatory business practices on a foundational level within an industry, that an industry that has consistently been marketed to minors, not just minors, but it is explicitly marketed to minors for almost the entire existence that it has been putting out products. Whenever you have a marketplace that uses these sort of practices in a predatory manner, whenever it is removing people's money from their hands, as opposed to, like, I always, anytime I hear the passive parenting argument come up, I always go back to South Park. I wasn't allowed to watch South Park as a kid growing up, and that was my mom's choice because she thought it was inappropriate for me at that time. That's perfectly fine. That didn't cost her any money to do that. I wasn't going to lose any money by sneaking around at my grandma's house and watching South Park no longer and uncut. But if you're sneaking around and you're dropping $150 on some Candy Crush garbage, that is a fucking problem, because that kid probably does not have $150. That $150 is coming from someone else.
I mean,
more than likely your parents.
And shit, like, so. I could sit here and I used to be able to say, well, I wouldn't pay anything for an app. I play a story game where you have to make choices, and to make certain choices you need diamonds, or if you want to keep playing chapters beyond 2 at a time, you have to pay for keys. And I fucking paid for keys. It's one of those things where it's like, it could happen to everybody. Everybody can get suckered into it, even if you think you're better than it. So it's like, kids don't have that frontal lobe cognitive ability fully developed yet. They just see something that they want, and they use whatever reason they can to justify it, and boom, you got a $350 charge on your credit card because they wanted to play more Candy Crush. Like,
exactly.
Ugh.
No, honestly, I think the best option here is to include the loot box warning, not necessarily a warning, but like in the rating system that the ESRB already has,
microtransactions.
You need to explicitly state that there are loot box mechanics in this game. There are like microtransactions in this game, so that if you want to empower parents to better understand these sort of things, then you need to show them that they're in there and educate them.
And that's a great idea, because I used to, when I was working at now defunct electronics store, TM, I would have to remind parents that the ESRB was a thing, because they would come in here asking like their 8-year, for their 8-year-olds if they can get Grand Theft Auto. I'm like, well, that's not really appropriate. I can pick out other games that are more appropriate for them if you tell me what they like. But nowadays, because a lot of parents our age were also gamers, they understand the ESRB and they go, all right, I'm gonna get them Mario over fucking Gears of War 3 or whatever, like. I think parents in our generation are a little savvier to this, but it still doesn't abdicate them from responsibility either.
So, who wants to go dunk on EA now?
Yay! EA sucks.
Isn't that like a weekly practice for us?
Welcome to the weekly EA dunk.
All right.
They just didn't make it so easy.
They're like Bethesda. They're two peas in a fucking pod. Like, oh, what did EA do this time?
Well, this time, their fourth quarter numbers have come out. Thank you, Brendan Sinclair of GameIndustry.biz.
Brendan Sinclair is such a good boy. Thank you, Brendan, for all the work that you do.
Thank you. So, their revenue was down 22%. Their net income down 66%.
Holy shit!
Sure glad they got Anthem out before the end of the quarter.
Oh man, what are all these CEOs gonna do now? They can't, finance their third yacht. Shit.
Yeah, even Apex Legends couldn't save them, apparently, from the drops right now. And they presently, next quarter, don't have anything coming up at all. So, another dip forecasted.
That's the good job.
They got some sweet Anthem DLC. But that's free, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, wasn't Apex Legends, isn't that free still?
That is free.
Okay,
yes,
so oh EA, you and your continual fuck ups. I feel so bad for BioWare and all of the shit that those companies employees had to go through, and this, I made a joke about CEOs before and whatever, but it's like I'm more concerned with this information coming out, how that's going to affect the bottom tier, like all the people working on the actual development of the games and people working in QA and things like that. Like, does this mean more layoffs? Probably. Does this mean more fucking employees over? Probably.
My favorite part of this entire thing is a quote from the CFO, Blake Jorgensen, that is so amazingly corporate doublespeak that I adore it.
Oh, God.
We ended our fiscal year with strong growth, driven by our live services business, which continue to provide a very large, stable, and profitable source of net bookings. Looking ahead, we will bring games to an extraordinary variety of players in fiscal 2020 and deliver on our commitment to players with deep live service content for Ultimate Team, Apex Legend, The Sim 4, Anthem, and Battlefield 5.
When will these fucking companies learn that people are sick to death of live services? Is it just me?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, is it just me? Am I the only one? Because all of these games, The Sims 4, first of all, has been out fucking forever. So, that shouldn't even be I know it's their most latest Sims and they're still doing content for it, but that's kind of irrelevant compared to Anthem, Apex, etc. But, it's... I am sick to death of the constant live services bullshit that these companies are doing, like Activision is doing. Like just give me a fucking fully fledged game. I don't care about going online. I don't care about multiplayer. Give me a fucking experience that I can enjoy. Then worry about selling me additional DLC and content. I'm so fucking over it, man.
So, I think it's very telling the order of titles that they put the order that they put those titles in there in Jorgensen's statement, because I think it really speaks to the level of priority assigned to each one. Because obviously Ultimate Team is where they get most of their money. Notice they didn't say FIFA or Madden; they just said Ultimate Team, because those are the only fucking modes in those games that they care about right now, because they're the ones that are propping the company up.
Right.
And then, of course, Apex, obviously there will be a second battle pass at some point this year, probably sometime in the summer, I would guess, either summer or the early fall. And hopefully, obviously Respawn has already said that they've learned from the mistake of, having a very small amount of content released with the first battle pass. So all signs point to Apex having a much more robust battle pass the next time it comes around for people to drop, I believe, like $10 to $13 on that. The Sims 4, like, that's still selling a good amount of add-ons to the game.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said it was relevant. You're right. That was my mistake.
Yeah, that community is still thriving, even for the size that it is. I don't think there's going to be a ton of growth there. I don't think The Sims 4 is going to draw a larger new audience to it in the next coming year. And then, of course, Anthem and Battlefield 5, two games they probably could not give two fucks about at this point.
Oh, no.
They understand that they have shit the bed on both of them.
You
like,
think?
There's no... literally, there's no way they're going to be able to prop those up into economic successes at this point.
And I'm also a little concerned too, not just for the bottom line people who are most likely going to get the most out of this instead of their corporate masters taking responsibility, but this combined with the fact that there's not going to be an EA showing at E3. Where's EA going with this?
Well, so here's the thing: EA is not going to have a major press conference as we are used to. Like, they're not going to get up on stage like Phil Spencer and talk about their giant lineup of stuff coming this year for two reasons. One, they don't have a giant lineup of stuff coming this year.
Right,
and two, oh sorry.
No, there was nothing announced for fourth quarter this year, right? Like it's just empty.
They do have Star Wars coming.
Star Wars, that's the only thing outside of their tentpole sports games that are coming out this year. I mean, they do have I guess there are some reports that there might be a new Need for Speed or a new Plants vs. Zombies, at some point that might be announced for the fourth quarter, but there isn't anything that is going to move the needle really in the way that they are expecting the needle to move, because according to the earnings call, they are purporting that they are expecting to see revenues up by 9% with an income increase of 154%. Both of which would be records for the company.
Boy, they're assuming a lot, though, if all they're relying on is this live service content. That is a big fucking assumption.
I mean...
you just gotta sell more of those live pass items, and you get more out of your ultimate team from your sports games, and everything's good.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Brian, but that is a hell of a figure that you're projecting. Like, they're projecting.
No, it is a hell of a figure, because honestly, that is such a ridiculous high amount of money, considering that really Jedi Fallen Order is the only thing that has gotten any kind of excitement around it in terms of a release coming later on this year.
Yeah.
I mean, FIFA always sells, Madden always sells.
Yeah.
Even though Madden is a shell of what it used to be, those two games always sell. They are not enough to give you $5.3 billion in revenue.
Hell no.
Do you know what is going to bring them back from that brink? They're putting Apex Legends on mobile devices. It's going to turn it all around, baby.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I love that this came out the same day that PUBG announced that they were going to stop monetizing the game.
Okay, baby.
It's not going to come to Nintendo Switch, because, it's a mobile device that doesn't really need this game or anything. But, hey, put it on your fucking smartphone, because Apex Legend will be super fucking easy to play.
I'm good, Doug. Thanks.
On mobile.
Oh my god. But let's not put it on Switch, which is doing very, very well, and has a possible market for this, especially considering Fortnite's on Switch. Don't worry about it. We don't need to directly compete. What the fuck?
Real quick, before we go on with this, I did misspeak a little bit. PUBG did not stop monetization on the game itself. Tencent pulled the game from the Chinese marketplace.
Ooh.
That's where that came from. So they're losing that Chinese money. Anyway, back to Apex. I don't really. Why do they think that Apex Legends by itself is going to be enough to prop this company up to that sort of height?
They're putting a lot of Apex in one basket. But I think they're not realizing that people are starting to get burnt out on the Battle Royale thing, and it's not happening in mass, because it's still very popular on Twitch and other streaming services, but It's slowly starting to happen, and it feels, and I could 100% be wrong here. It feels like they're doing this a little too late in the game, and putting all of their eggs into one basket like this. It unless something is drastically different behind the scenes that we're not aware of, this looks like it's going to be a big fucking hell no to them when it comes to their fiscal support report for next year. I don't see this working out in their favor.
Honestly, the major thing that they probably need to be doing with Apex right now is finding a way to have it enter the esport marketplace.
Yeah.
They need to find a way to make a competitive league the same way that Epic has done with the Fortnite World Cup, same way that PUBG has been doing with their esports leagues. You know, I mean, it's not going to be the most lucrative realm of esports, obviously.
Yeah.
But you could make a pretty the return on investment is there if you do it right. Problem is, I don't know if I trust EA to do it right. I think, I want to say EA actually invested in building a esports broadcasting center or production center or something. Let me double check on that real quick if you want to.
It just seems like EA is in the job of copying trends, which I get. You know, like, companies do that in order to stay on top of things and to get the most market share and all that stuff. But it's easy to copy a popular trend or popular genre and still not have any idea how to handle it correctly. And that is my concern. That and I'm not talking about developers. I'm not saying the developers are fools or anything like that. I'm talking specifically about EA. I'm sure the developers for the game are fine. It just seems like EA has a known background for mismanaging companies and for mismanaging games. And I don't think I'm saying that with any malice or libel. I think I'm speaking truth here. So that is where my concern comes in. Like,
they've done better than Boss Key, haven't they?
Everyone's done better than Boss Key. Everyone ever. So yeah, EA is building a state-of-the-art esports broadcast studio in Redwood City. They're going to start using it beginning this year with the Madden NFL 19 challenge.
Okay. All right.
So they are building up some kind of presence within esports. It makes me think that maybe they might put Apex there, because honestly they need to capitalize on that in the moment, because I don't know how much longer battle royale games are going to really hold a viable place in the esports market. But you know, like, they're investing. I think Beth points out a really good thing, actually. They are a reactionary company.
Yeah.
They do not get ahead of the game at all. And they usually come up on trends as they are going out of style, to the point where their revenues have dropped by 22%.
I mean, and look at the Battle Royale statistics, too. We had PUBG, which was on top for a very long time. I'm looking at just Twitch statistics here. Fortnite went and just basically went, fuck you, PUBG, it's mine now. And then, as of earlier this year, Apex Legends went and grabbed the title from Fortnite. So Apex Legends now is the big thing. But again, even comparing the statistics to PUBG and to Fortnite, like, right now it's on top, but it's not going to stay that way forever. And I really think that, like, people are starting to lose interest. Again, I can be wrong, but I'm just going by what I'm seeing on Twitch. And yeah, the numbers are still there, but they've been declining. So I'm repeating myself at this point, but I don't think this is a wise idea. But, you know, I'm just some schmuck who likes video games. I'm not the COO. What do I know?
All right. Before we move on, chat, I would like you all to just close your eyes for a moment, take some deep breaths, roll your shoulders. Are we all ready for the last topic of today?
Is it time for Dick Talk?
Yeah, so before we continue with this does have a content warning of sexual harassment, of doing sexual things with minors. So if that disturbs you, feel free to skip this, or to, if you're currently watching us live, mute us or do something else. Because this is unfortunately something that needs to be addressed. We were hemming and hawing at this, I think, on Discord, because we use that to talk about what we're going to discuss for the podcast. And we were like, should we do it? Should we not do it? But ultimately, I think it's something that deserves to be covered. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about ProJared.
All right, ProJared is a famed YouTuber, quite well known, especially for his minute reviews and items along those lines. He is a member, was a member, we'll get to that, of the Normal Boots community, which has a continued show, The Completionist, other such items within its purview. During the day, well, overnight basically, he went to Twitter late at night to announce that he had an upcoming divorce from his longtime wife. And his wife came back pretty hard with several allegations that he has been cheating, that he's been soliciting nudes from fans, including underage fans, that he set up Tumblrs, that he set up a Tumblr just to share nudes with other fans, saying that it was a sex positivity Tumblr that he was creating. And as well, the source of the cheating was the former wife of Rebel Ross from the Game Grumps fame, Commander Holly.
Commander Holly, yeah.
Yeah, who he has been playing D&D with for some time. And there's nothing in this, honestly, but gross. Especially multiple people have come forward since this to also put forward their stories. Most of them have not wanted to have any further discussion on it, but at least one of them was 16 years old at the time that he would message them with very explicit content. And there's been delightful pictures that came out of these conversations that have been making their way around Twitter.
Before I go ahead and read what Heidi has to say, Beth in chat is saying that the Tumblr thing is true. I was on Tumblr at the time and following him when that happened. That Tumblr definitely existed. So...
yeah, we definitely know the Tumblr thing existed. His response for the Tumblr thing is that it was a sex-positive Tumblr, that he and others wanted to make sure that they could put themselves out there and feel positive about such things. And that's why, especially his wife, went along with it, was that he wanted to put positivity in the world, was his statement for the starting it.
Yeah, so to start off on this, Heidi, the his wife whom he's divorcing, says on Twitter, quote, "It's also true that he's been soliciting nudes from his fans for years. I was there. In the beginning, it was a joke on Tumblr, then it was his own Tumblr account just for nudes. It was ostensibly a body-positive space for consenting adults, and I approved on that basis. It kept escalating secretly. He started the Snapchat for getting nudes from fans without telling me. I found out via a fan comment. I felt pressured to allow it, even though I was uncomfortable. Anytime I gave him an inch, he took a mile." The article continues to go on to say that Heidi thought that it was consenting adults and it's fine, it's body positivity, but apparently, like Sacker was saying, there was a couple of people, or at least one person who was 16. There was a couple of other tweets who claim, again, these are all allegations, but who claim to have been 15, 16 at the time. It's awful. People have been unsubscribing to him very, very quickly, which personally, they should. This is ProJared actually losing subscribers in real time, and he just lost 200 as we were talking about this. So it's I mean, I don't know, and this is something we've been covering, not necessarily this case, of course, because this just broke today, but this is something that we've been covering, it seems like almost every month or every other month when it comes to influencers in the community, whether that's streamers or YouTubers. How do you take advantage of people like that? Like, and minors, like, I
don't think a lot of these guys understand that they are in a position of power. A lot of these guys grew up, right? believing themselves to be nothing, and never realized that they've become something that people look up to them. That several of the people who have come forward said, I went along because he was this famous guy, and I wanted the attention of somebody whom I respected. One of them saying even it got weird after a week or so, but that's why it started, because I was interested in getting this attention from somebody whom I had seen go on and make this, amazing content. And yeah, turns out kind of a sex addicted sleazeball, kind of. And several of his friends initially, most notably Peanut Butter Gamer, had attempted to defend him before really understanding what all happened.
Yeah.
Most of them have backtracked hard.
Oh yeah. And speaking of which, Normal Boots released a statement at 6:30 today. If you guys don't mind me reading it. On April 4th, 2019, an unsolicited email was sent to the Normal Boots business account containing allegations of inappropriate conduct pertaining to Jared, I'm going to butcher his last name, Nabenbauer. Upon receiving the email, Normal Boots manager Jake Khalil, again apologies, took immediate action to alert the appropriate parties, including Mr. Nauenbauer and the Normal Boots legal team, of the allegations. No other members of Normal Boots were made aware of the allegations while the investigation into said allegations was ongoing. It continues, Normal Boots understands the seriousness of the situation and does not condone any of the alleged actions of Mr. Nabenbauer. Prior to these allegations being made public, actions and measures were in the process to terminate the affiliation of Mr. Nauenbauer from Normal Boots and to update its internal social media use policies. Mr. Nabenbauer and Normal Boots have mutually agreed to part ways. What drives Normal Boots is the energy of our supporters. We care greatly about their protection and safety. It's impossible to have a true community if all of us don't feel safe, whether it's an online space or a convention. We are fully committed to this goal and will not tolerate less.
So you're telling me they had been made
Since
aware
April.
of these over a month ago,
Mm.
and from what I can tell, did not go to the police. Decided to conduct their own internal investigation.
Now that's I don't want to assume, because maybe I don't know. I do not know, and I don't want to make any assumptions. Maybe they did. I don't know.
I don't want to either, but it from what I gather from that statement, it sounds an awful lot like they wanted to keep this in house and figure out what the hell to do themselves. They wanted to, I'm not saying they wanted to keep this quiet in terms of a malicious way, but the fact that they sat on this for a month.
I mean, that, again, I do agree with that, but the fact that they've known this for over a month and hadn't publicly addressed it is completely shitty and injustifiable, frankly, in my opinion.
No, I mean, honestly, even if you didn't want to jump to conclusion and fire the dude from your channel or disassociate yourself from him from the channel, the least you could have done is announce that you were conducting an investigation.
Sure.
And suspended him.
Right, something. Anything, really. But they didn't. And it took getting to this point where people who, and I want to say the word allegations so that we don't get into any shit, people who have these allegations against him have to go on Twitter, and I'm not going to link to this for their privacy, but they've made long-ass posts saying, this is what happened to me, this is what happened to my friend, here's their Twitter story, here's this, here's that, here's evidence. The fact that it took it getting to this point for Normal Boots to make a statement is negligent at best.
Yeah.
One of my biggest problems with this whole fiasco has been some of the fan reactions. People have been horrible to Commander Hawley through the whole thing. While, cheating, while dating a man that is married, doing these activities is certainly not the best on a moral ground. She's had to make her Twitter completely protected at this point, and from what I understand, is taking a complete break from social media. for now over this incident. As well, I don't know if I can the people sharing some of these pictures that have come out without any form of censorship and just putting them out there. I mean, it's the same as doxing, right?
Yeah.
That if somebody is not putting this information out there willingly, and I know while ProJared had put out some, pictures of himself willingly, you know, in various amounts of disrobe, I don't think he ever put out a dick pic. I don't think he ever wanted the dick pics to be widely circulated. It feels mean and fucking gross.
Mm.
And certainly, if somebody deserves it, if the allegations that he was doing this with underage girls is validated, and I have no reason to disbelieve any of it at this point.
Yeah.
I won't say he doesn't deserve it, but it's still fucking disgusting. And
I mean, and the reason why I'm emphasizing that we're saying these are allegations is just to protect our asses. That doesn't mean that I don't believe these people who are coming out and saying it, because I do. But this is strictly just to cover our own ass on this. But that being said, even if you were in no position of power, if you were just a small-time YouTuber or just person on the internet, if there was a possibility of you receiving nudes from somebody who's a minor, wouldn't you think, yes, it's probably a bad idea. Let's not do it. Let's not do it. And regardless of whether or not he was aware of the position of power that he was in, he is still a grown adult. Yes. And there's no justifying that. I'm sorry. Now, when it comes to the thing with Holly, I don't know that story. And I'm not saying Holly is innocent in this, because, I mean, from what I understand, that's his whole thing. But that's like almost a side note to the fact that Jared has been soliciting minors, or did in the past. That whole drama thing is between Heidi and Jared and Holly and all of that. Probably Ross, too. That shouldn't be anybody's business. This, however...
Russ has already basically put out a statement that this whole mess does not involve him. He does not want to be involved in it.
Yeah.
And he instead took it, hey, thanks guys for warning about me, but, while you're here, here's a friend of mine's whose YouTube you should go watch. And that was maybe the only moment of response I've seen from this whole thing. Like, okay, maybe not everyone in the world sucks.
Yeah. Like, regardless of looking at the infidelity factor, that's nobody's business but their business, right? Like, it's I don't give a shit about that. Like, that has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with you. It's kind of dragging people's names through the I don't want to deal with that. And like, I could sit here and be like, well, I'm disappointed in Holly, but I don't know what the fuck happened between these people. It could have been, I don't know. It's not my concern. But there's no justifying this. There's no overlooking this. There's no kind of waving this aside and going, it's not that big of a deal. No, you got nudes from minors, dude. Like, of course you fucked up. I don't want to hear about your divorce. I want to hear about what retribution you're going to get, because there's no justifying this at all.
Oh, no. There really isn't a positive at all to take away from this whole situation, other than, we need to really keep an eye on the power dynamic between, people, influencers, and their community, because these people are, people. They're capable of shit.
Yeah. And it's
and
just...
they're proving it time and time again.
It's just, it's not even like this happened once and it's like, oh my god, who would do this? But like, it's like you're saying, and like I mentioned before, like it seems like if not every other month, every month we're covering, okay, which YouTuber or which streamer did something like this, or went after minors, or did some sort of awkward non-consensual sexual thing to like when we talk about a culture of fear and abuse, this is the kind of shit that I'm talking about. And again, just to reemphasize, the fact that Normal Boots did not take any public action about this until a month later, until these people started posting evidence, is a little telling. And that's all I'm going to say.
It's telling, but it's not out of the ordinary. I was doing some research while the discussion was going on. It actually took them longer to respond to the whole JonTron controversy a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Before, like, his comments came out in mid-March. They did not give him the boot from the channel until mid-May. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's a pattern with Normal Boots from what we've seen.
Yeah, I'm not going to outright condemn them for being really slow to respond, but I understand they're a small company and maybe they want to dot all their I's and cross the T's, but it's not good.
But there's still, I don't think there's no coincidence here between the release of this information and then suddenly making the statement. Let me just say that. What a fucking just awful mess.
Yep. All right, let's clear out all of this garbage. Picture yourself in a field. No.
Picture yourself in a boat on a river.
This has been Mr. Video Games for this week, but of course, every week we end with naming a Mr. Video Games, and there's a couple contenders, but we wanted to go with something positive this week because we knew we were ending on this.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Video Games, for those who do not know, is we name somebody or something as Mr. Video Games who has done something that has changed the way we look at games, for positive, for negative. Something that is emblematic of the industry or video games itself. And this week's Mr. Video Games is Ryan Reynolds.